tonight, probably one of the last things you think about, especially in these rather troubling times, is war. But what a perfect time for a war movie, right? Earlier in the year, we had a movie called The Outpost that was put out, and I gave it a very favorable review. I thought it was a very good movie. Now comes a movie about the waning days of World War II. It's called Recon. And instead of being a very violent and show of a lot of warfare, military warfare, and what have you, this one talks more about the psychology behind war, and it is really a strong character study. And I am happy tonight to have with me as my guest the writer and director of Recon, Robert Port. He'll join us in the studio. A cinematic class is about to begin, and your professor is in. And Robert, thank you very much for coming on to the show tonight. Pleasure
Thanks for having me.
Talk with you. Yeah. And as we said before we went live on the air, it looks absolutely marvelous where you're at. Blue skies, green trees in the background.
Yes, we always say there has to be something good about Los Angeles. It's the weather. So the weather keeps us here. Otherwise I don't think anyone would live in Los Angeles. Earthquakes, fires, you got to have that sunny weather. Then we all get lulled back to a sense of complacency. So it's always nice.
Robert, let's talk a little bit about Recon. Recon is a movie, as I said in the beginning, about World War II, and it's the dying days of World War II in Italy, and we're not quite sure what's happening. Just to fill in the audience, the Italians have pretty much quit the war, and Germany is retreating. And it's at this time that we come across this group in this little city in Italy, and I hope I say this right. I think it was Cassida, something like that.
Cassina, yeah, that's how we were told it was pronounced.
Yes. Okay. So we're in there, and that's where most of these events take place. Robert, this is earlier this year there was a war movie that came out called Outpost, The Outpost.
Yes.
And it was obviously it was a modern day because it dealt with the Middle East, but it was very much pretty much a go America, rah rah, and fighting spirit type movie. Recon is not quite that way. Recon, I think, deals more with the psychological burdens of war. Would you like to augment on that?
Yeah, and it's a great question. It's a very fair question. I'll say up top, to be very clear, the inspiration for this film comes from two major places. Richard Boucher's incredible book piece. His father fought bravely in World War II. Richard himself is a military vet. And also from the stories my grandfather, who escaped from Vienna when he was 16. We're Jewish. It sounds like there's a helicopter coming over me. Give me 1 second there. My grandfather escaped when he was 16 from Vienna and went back and served under Patton, won a Bronze Star, ended up liberating a concentration camp. And the stories he told me is so many members of the Greatest Generation, they wouldn't talk about the killing, and they wouldn't talk about, in fact, my grandfather, I said, how'd you win your Bronze Star? He said, I was trying to survive. It wasn't heroism, which of course isn't true. Because later on, once he passed away, I looked through his personal papers. He had written an autobiography about himself, 40 pages, and talked about the incredible bravery he and 8 other men performed one night in France, and they saved about 200 civilians. They refused to let these civilians, strangers in a foreign land, die. They were willing to risk their own lives. And that's the true spirit of the American military. So let me be super clear. I did 10 years in the Sheriff's Department, very pro-military, very pro-law enforcement. Now, with that disclaimer stated, I think that everyone I spoke to, from my grandfather down to members, friends of mine who were been on SEAL Team 6, who we all look at as these, and rightly so, as these gods and whatnot. I've never heard any of them say to me, hey, I'm pro-war, right? They're incredibly brave men and women, and they go and do the job that's asked of them. And wherever that job is, they do it without complaint. But as we all know, there are tremendous effects on these individuals. And while we all get to sit back and Monday morning quarterback and talk about something we see on a social media post about a soldier that should have done this or could have done this, the truth of the matter is we don't know. We weren't in that position. We weren't in that shoot, don't shoot moment. We weren't in that let's help him, not help him moment. So what, through Richard's wonderful book, I was trying to capture here was what my grandfather taught me, a really important word, morality. What is your individual morality? And that I do feel is a very applicable theme in today's day and age. A movie doesn't have to be political to allow you to have a good conversation. I think you can have a good conversation about, to me, the most important things is, your morals. What are the morals? I have 3 children. I teach, and a dog. I got to teach them all, I try to teach them all good morals. And by that, I mean, you got to be an individual of your convictions. And I think that's my long answer to your question, which is that is baked into the central character of Marson in this film, who has to decide. It's very easy to sort of sit on the sideline. It's very easy to take a shot from 100 yards. I shouldn't say easy. It's easy in the sense of that's what they're ordered to do, and they're comfortable within that. But when you have to make those judgments that only you can make, where it gets really gray, it's no longer black and white. That's where it gets tricky. Now, it's interesting. Every character, and if you saw the film, you'll know, has their own moral decision to make in this movie. Granted, Marson's is the biggest, the central character, played by the wonderful Alexander Ludwig. But everyone tried to make every character in this film have a moral decision. And moral, by the way, just is, it doesn't just mean, as I tell my kids all the time, well, should I steal that candy bar or not? I mean, that's an easy one, right? If you're questioning that, you're already slipping towards a dangerous side. It's, my family's starving to death, I have no money, do I take that loaf of bread? Right now it's becoming more complicated. So try to give every character a really strong moral story within it. And so in that way, and I'm really not paying lip service, in that way, I think it pays tribute to the greatest of all American individuals, which is the U.S. soldier, because that is what folks like my grandfather and any soldier I've ever spoken to, a good friend of mine, Nate Boyer, who's very well known, who's an amazing Green Beret, is in the press all the time. Some of the stories that he has shared with me from his various conflicts in Afghanistan, turning the corner and having to make a split-second decision about whether to shoot a child or not shoot a child who's holding a gun. You have to live with those consequences. And these incredible, brave men and women, do that every day.
Yeah. First off, let me say that if you're actually teaching morality to your dog, kudos to you, brother.
Well, I live in Los Angeles, so we have there are a lot of aggressive dogs out here, so I have to teach them to.
Since you brought up morality, originally I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you brought up the morality thing, and I don't want to give too much of the movie away.
Sure.
One of the big moral conflicts in this story is, at one point in the story, the American squad comes across some Italians who are harboring a Nazi, and they shoot the Nazi, and then the head of the squad shoots the girlfriend of the Nazi.
Correct.
And this causes a moral dilemma. Should you, because she was a quote unquote Nazi lover, should you shoot her? Or, did the sergeant overstep his grounds? And the neat thing about the story is that moral dilemma is never really decided in the movie. It's kind of taken out of the picture. Now, is that just sticking with your notes and research, or did you purposely do it that way?
No, I purposely did it that way, but I would say, and again, I don't want to give away anything more in the movie. The sergeant referring to is played by Tyler Hines, who's wonderful, handsome bastard. Every Hallmark movie, he's got a zillion followers, great guy. And what I wanted, and this was a challenge, and Tyler rose to the occasion, is the sergeant's doing what he feels he has to do to protect his platoon. And friends and acquaintances that I've spoken to in officer positions have told me that their primary job is they want to get their men home and women home safely. And so I don't want to make it one-dimensional. You know, there are true war stories where individuals have committed war crimes, and the morality is as simple as, well, what are you going to do, and how do you bring that individual to justice? This isn't that simple, because he's trying to keep his platoon alive, and so that question lingers throughout the film. I would say, and again, audiences draw your own conclusions. The answer to that comes into the actions at the very end of the film of the central characters, Marson and Joyner, and even Ash to a certain extent, and of course Angela, who's played by the incredible Franco Nero, the greatest, you know, been in 300 films, and just amazing guy. I would say that action, because obviously that discussion takes place through the whole movie, impacts the decision that everyone makes. So I'm not trying to dodge the question. I would say that yes. And again, I don't want to give away, but of course, there is a result for Sergeant Reese. Something does happen to him. And when you sort of put the totality of that together, hopefully you step back and go, was justice served? I don't know. But is that really what it was about? Or was it that influenced the decisions that our protagonists made in the film? That's what I was trying to just have a little conversation on the way out of the theater before you go home and you know, go back to, you know, petting your dog and playing video games with your kids and whatever everyone else,
sure,
you know,
hey,
it does.
I think it worked. I think it worked fine.
Thank you.
Now, you had mentioned that this was based off a piece called, sorry, I gave that away, called Peace, by Richard Bosch. Originally, in the pre-publicity for this movie, you had toyed with keeping that title Peace. So what brought about the change to Recon?
Yeah, so the book is incredible. Richard Bosch, an American treasure, great author, wrote the book. You know, to be totally blunt, I just didn't want this to become a political conversation. And the minute you call a movie, at least in my humble opinion, the minute you call a movie Peace, everyone walks in and walks out with a preconceived notation of what I, as a filmmaker, am trying to make this film about. And that's why I changed. I did not, as you know, thanks largely in part to Richard's great book, there is so much character in this film, right? And so many different points of view. I did not want to influence anyone. You walk in, you see a movie called Peace, you go, oh, I know what it's about. The filmmaker thinks this, and he thinks this, and he thinks this. I wanted no preconceived notion. So Recon is an accurate description. They are a reconnaissance unit, and they are going out, and they are getting recon. And that's what the film, you know, on its base level is about. So
I can see that. It makes a lot of sense. Earlier, before this came along, and I should point out to the audience that Recon is your first full-length feature directorial debut.
Yes, that's correct.
But before this, you have yourself a little statuette sitting on your mantle. You've won an Oscar for a short film that was called Twin Towers. And this is basically the retelling, and it centers around Detective Joe Vigliano. Did I say that right?
Vigliano, yeah. It's a documentary short, and Joe is a very good buddy of mine. He was incredibly, talk about heroes. He's an NYPD detective who served in their elite emergency services unit, which is SWAT combined. I mean, only New York would have rolled it all into one. SWAT, bridge jumpers, scuba diving, you know, you name it, car wrecks, these guys respond. And I was doing a documentary on him because he had this incredible career. And unfortunately, on the 11th, he was killed, and his brother, who is a firefighter, and was killed as well. And so the documentary is about Joe and his brother, and you know, their heroism.
Now, do you like finding these individuals and then building, you know, works around them? What is it particularly that attracts you to an individual that makes you want to make a film about them?
I have just found in my experience, like I said, I was fortunate enough to have good friends in the New York City Police Department when I lived in New York. And then when I came out here and I was in the Sheriff's Department for 10 years as a reserve, I would meet these individuals, and they're so modest and they're so humble. But one after another has these incredible stories that you could never make up. And whether you just tell their stories verbatim, which as Hollywood filmmakers we tend not to do, or you use it as an inspiration to platform and make something greater. Casey Cheshire right now is in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I met him a few months ago. He said, oh, I got a story, you know, might be interesting through a mutual friend. This gentleman was coming back from Catalina Island, in a speedboat. He's a member of the SWAT team out here, and now the Emergency Services Division. A whale, this is straight Herman Melville, a whale hit his boat, sent him 40 feet in the air into the water. The boat came around, severed his leg, and he had to survive out there for hours. Sharks, the whole 9 yards. Any normal human being would have died. He managed to not only not pass out, but tied several tourniquets. He had no life vest on, had a, right? So when someone tells me that story, yeah. I go, that's amazing. I want to meet that guy. And then when I sit down with Casey and he tells me about his career so modestly, about the 3 medals of valor he's won for lives he's saved, so modestly, I go, holy smokes. And you start to think, wow, this is a genre and a dramatic story that I think people want to hear, because it takes you outside of, again, our preconceived notions of whether you support cops or don't, or whatever your various mishugas is these days, and it tells you an essentially human story, which is survival. And that's what I like to go from. And that was the same thing with Richard's book. A Tale of Morality, I'm in. You know, I was like a geeky American lit major in college. And so, I studied a lot of Fitzgerald. I read The Great Gatsby still twice a year. And that's what makes me happy. I read those books and I go, I get it. It's about greed. It's about American morals. It's about values. Let's keep it simple. Now, by the way, I have friends who have written Marvel movies. Man, I wish I could do that, because they live in a lot bigger homes than me, and they got a lot less. They sleep a lot better at night than me. It's just not. Unfortunately, I don't have that muscle, and no one's asking me to do it. So, wow. This is what I'm drawn to.
That's a good way to sum it all up. Now, you've been actually writing a lot longer than you've been doing this directing thing. So I'm curious as to which you prefer and which you feel is your best forte.
So it's funny. No one's asked me. I've done a ton of interviews for this. No one's asked me. I'm glad you asked me that question. So the truth is, technically, I started directing first. I was 21 years old, and I worked at NBC in New York, and they had essentially an in-house advertising department. Just think of it as an in-house advertising agency. Mm-hmm. It's a great guy, Carl Killingsworth, who's unfortunately passed away many years ago, who and this was back in the day, we used to have 3 scotches at lunch still. This is the good old days, you know? Sure. And that was my film school, because what they would send me out to direct these 30, 60-second commercials for, it could be promoting the David Letterman show or Saturday Night Live, or a special news report with famed investigative reporter John Miller. And they would give me an ungodly amount of money. For them, it wasn't. They would give me 150, 200 grand, and I would go direct these commercials, essentially, to promote the news or whatever their various things was. And so I was very confident with my directing skills at a fairly young age, because I had just done such a volume of it and got to work with some pretty cool, folks and celebrities, even if it was a short format. I was very confident with that. The writing I'd always written, but I was less confident. So it took me probably until my second season on a very popular CBS show, Numbers, which was on CBS, where I was a writer and a producer, to kind of really find my groove and start to have confidence in sort of my voice as a writer there. And then, yes, you're correct. I've been fortunate and written a lot of network and cable TV stuff since then. And yes, I have a lot of credits. So yes, my credits are far more numerous for writing. Okay, now that it took me 25 minutes to answer that, which do I prefer? Wow. I'm going to go with directing. I love directing. I would say it's more natural. How's that? It's a more natural thing for me to do, and I feel I always feel more confident when I'm directing, be it documentaries or short films or this. Writing, up until the second on set, I'm really triple guessing. Is that the right word, the verbiage, and whatever. Whereas directing, I feel much more just confident in that. Yep, this is the story I'm telling. Here's how you tell it.
Well, I have, you may enjoy the directing, but I have it on pretty good word that you're actually writing 2 television shows now. One is called The Hunt, and the other is something about an elite Air 5.
Yeah, that was. Team. Yeah, so that was okay. So last year I wrote a pilot for NBC and for TNT. And the NBC passed on that one, and now I actually have a new pilot I just sold to TNT. That's that's based on, I want to tell a modern police story. I mean, this was, obviously I do a lot of the law enforcement, and it's tricky in 2020. And again, no politics, just fact. It's very, very tricky to be a police officer in 2020. And I want to tell sort of do my version of what it's really like. And so there's a lot of gallows humor. I've been on thousands, legitimately ride-alongs. Well, when I was with the sheriff's department, SWAT calls and bomb squad, and the gallows humor is what keeps these folks going. So I wanted to really incorporate that in a way, and at the same time, sort of explore what it's like amongst my friends who are police officers, who, by the way, I should say are African-American and Caucasian and Muslim and Hispanic and Jewish and Gentile. I mean, they make up every shape and form here in Los Angeles and across the country. And I wanted to explore what it would be like to sort of be a police officer in 2020. So that's, it's called, right now, it's really untitled. It's sort of called Shades of Gray, because that's the world they all have to operate, right? The black and white are gone now. Yes. I don't mean that by race. I mean that by in terms of good guys versus bad guys, black hats, yes, white hats. And so I'm doing that. And then I've got a movie that Franco Nero, the great Franco Nero, and I have a movie that hopefully as soon as COVID's over, we're going to go do down in Cuba, of all places. Oh. Great little road movie, throwback road movie that he brought to me. And yeah, so I'm doing that right now, and always keeping my eye out for a documentary. I love doing documentaries. Don't make any money on them, but I love doing them.
Now, Robert, you have some connections with the Mopo production company, yeah, and Maury Povich. Yeah. How did that all come about?
So Maury is the world's greatest mensch, I call him. I was, when I was telling you, when I started my career at NBC, one of the folks I did a promotion for was the original Maury Povich show. He just left Current Affair. And he and I met, and we got along so well that he hired me to run his company, and we started as a long form and a promotion company. And for 30 years, he became like my second dad. It was far exceeded a professional relationship, and both he and Connie Chung, his beautiful, wonderful wife, were so great to me, and everything we ever did was on a handshake. The documentary Twin Towers that we won the Oscar for, that's because of Maury, because he funded it, and all the projects that he and I developed over the years, everything's just been on a handshake. Not even a handshake. Everything's just on. I know we always take care of one another. He's been my #1 patron. He's of course a legend, not just for having the longest talk show on air, but his father, Shirley Povich, wrote a column for the Washington Post for 75 years. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And so Maury grew up in entertainment and news. And when I send him scripts, or if I send him books, he always has an amazing, blunt but accurate, keen insight into projects. So he and I have a very, very special relationship.
It can't hurt to have someone like that in your corner.
He's, like I said, he's about as good as they come. So you're not going to get a better guy than Maury.
Hey, let's get back to recon just for a bit here, Robert,
sure,
because in this age of the Wuhan virus, it's so difficult to get people together in social gatherings. But you guys managed to do something with recon where you're having well, for lack of a better term, a premiere, and you tagged down over 300 theaters. How did all that come about?
So Brainstorm Media, who's been amazing, they bought the film for distribution, and then they teamed us up with Fathom Events. And I knew of Fathom Events. Fathom Events is just terrific. When you go to the theater, way back when we used to go to theaters, right? You'd sit there, and if you're like me, you always get there early, even though the seats are assigned, just because I don't know why. And you see they'll be like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 25th anniversary, coming October 19th. That's Fathom Events. They do all those amazing, wonderful single night events.
Yes.
And so we teamed up with them to release this for Veterans Day, and God bless those guys. I don't know how they have done it. Tremendous team, and they have men and women. They have put together over 350 theaters, and it is all them. I still have no idea how they do. They send me the list, and every day there's more theaters added. And if 2 theaters close, if you read about that in Deadline, somehow they get 5 more theaters added. So if you go to fathomevents.com, you can see fathomevents.com/recon. But even if you just go to fathomevents.com, you'll see the films on there too. They'll tell you how to get the tickets. If you want to go this evening, if you're comfortable going, certainly these theaters have done a great job of of providing safety precautions here in the
Sure.
era of COVID. And then tomorrow, if you don't happen to make it for some reason, it'll be on iTunes and Google Play and Sony PlayStation 4 even. I didn't even know you could rent movies apparently through Sony PlayStation 4. So I joke that's good because my 16-year-old son Jordan, maybe he'll stop playing Destiny for 2 hours and watch his dad's. No guarantees. I don't know, but I figure I have a better chance probably of reaching that demographic on Sony PlayStation. So I love it, man. I got to go make movies specifically for Sony PlayStation. I'm doing that. That's my next goal. So.
Robert, I want to thank you for stopping by the cameras today. Boy, this was.
My pleasure.
I wish you a lot of luck with this.
Thank you,
Franco Nero in this movie, I really enjoyed his performance. I really did. And I've talked to some other people that have seen it, and they've said, he was kind of like very, very low key. And I thought, well, that was the whole point of the character. He was supposed to be mysterious, and even without giving anything away, at the end of the movie, you still don't know where he. There's no clear-cut thing as to where he was.
I'm going to send you on tour to speak for me because you seem to be the one who's gotten it perfectly. It's exactly. Yeah. He is all things to all people, and he is a man who's just trying to survive. Now, I will close by saying, because you have cinephile and film fans, the great Franco Nero, who's been in 300 films, has worked with everyone from Laurence Olivier to Robert Pattinson, was incredible. That guy does more with a look and a glance, to your point, than most folks do with 3 or 4 lines of dialogue. He has literally become like family. In fact, he texted me in our middle of our recovery. We speak every day. I love the man. Go see it because you're seeing. Look, Quentin Tarantino. He's Quentin Tarantino's favorite for a reason, right? He's the original Django. Go check it out for Franco, for Alexander Ludwig, who's incredible, and Chris Brochu, Sam Keeley, R.J. Featherstone, Tyler Hines. They all just absolutely slay it.
Yeah, I enjoyed Sam Keeley. I thought his character was
Sam's great. If Sam
very interesting, yeah.
Sam is and will continue to be a huge name in cinema and TV. I guarantee it. He's just way too talented.
I wish you a lot of luck with Recon. I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was a very interesting approach to the waning war there in Italy, and there was a lot of good character study in it.
Thank you so much.
Played out very well. So, people, you can get this movie on video on demand, on home video, and through your favorite streaming device. It is called Recon, and I'll be back right after this.
Something's coming. Get ready! Do not move! What is he saying?
He's saying he's our friend.
You guide us up the mountain and show us where the Germans are, see?
I got a bad feeling.
He always got a bad feeling.
Thanks.
We gotta move. Somebody's putting a beat on me the whole way down this mountain.
No time, we hurry.
There's something out there.
He's not one of them, sir. He's leading us into a Nazi regiment.
You trust me?
No, I don't trust you.
Here we go. It's a sniper! Move!
You know he can pick us off at any time, right? Get him home.
He's been watching us this whole time! What the hell is wrong with you?
We are going to finish this mission.
I would like to thank once again Robert Port for stopping by and talking with us here on Outtakes. Recon is a really good move. Franco Nero in this, like I said, he's just amazing. Definitely worth. What'd you expect? He's Italian. Of course he was amazing. This is a real interesting character study, going back to World War II. Kind of fun to watch. I wish Robert Port an awful lot of luck with this movie. And you can see it now on your favorite streaming device, video on demand, and of course, home video as well. It is definitely worth a view. I think you're going to like this one. And now that you have learned what you have learned, here endeth your lesson.